Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having a fantastic day. We're taking a quick look at Bitcoin. I'm going to talk about this ascending type of trend. Typically they do break to the downside, but we'll see how this upper retest looks. Good news is we see a lot of volume here flowing in ever since Sunday morning. So that's generally a favorable sign. So we're going to look at some back-end liquidation data here. Quick congrats and thank you so much again for being an awesome part of my life. Near protocol, we took 56% and ETH. We also took 27% from a trade from last week. So it's been a nice profitable month this month. And at this point, we want to kind of see, is it worth taking a long or a short? Do you want to FOMO into the top, or do you want to try to short what feels like the top based on an ascending type of trend with that retest? We're going to double check and see. So take a look here at the liquidation data. We can recognize 89,000. There is a little bit of liquidation above the price right now. And what that basically just tells us is that there is an upper liquidation range here. So in other words, simply to put, we can recognize that we got this upper area here that is just more local, and it's not like a definitive like incentivized price scenario. So in other words, it's not going to push the price much higher. Majority of the upper liquidation at about 87,000 here locally was swept. So if the price does pull back, it would seem to be sensible to bounce off that 87K range, that local resistance, that local high. If we take a look here, of course, liquidation delta is super high, 14 billion. We haven't seen this in a while. And when it gets to that level, anything over 10 billion, in most cases, it'll typically start to taper off or literally go sideways and up. In other words, oftentimes it's very early to tell, but it's not a situation you want to short into. Okay? I know I talked about shorting $85,000, $86,000 range. Absolutely held off on that, of course. And the reason why? A lot of volume was flowing in. It was a weekend. It's just not good conditions to try to trade. At this point, though, being a Monday and not seeing an immediate sell-off in the kill zone, that open market, as soon as the market opens, we're probably going to be sustaining 88,000 or maybe even going higher. So we're going to check our descending trend line. I feel like we're testing our descending trend line and we're breaking through it. So if we close at this range or higher, the 86 to 87K range or higher, there's a distinct probability we're going to go further up. So it might be advantageous to consider buying the dip versus selling the top here, essentially. All right, so take a look here. We can see 87,000 and 86.7 and 87,000. Those are two areas of open interest, and we also got 85K as that heavy area. So that is kind of like that push, that strong push to the upside. There's a lot of buying pressure at 85,000. So I'm using round numbers here, but 85 and 87,000 are those two common numbers that we're seeing here more consistently. So that reinforces that support if the price were to pull back. Okay, so just kind of know that. Take a look at the daily time frame. Let's see what's going on. In fact, we're going to start with a weekly just to quickly get perspective and see kind of where we're at. So the overall trend here is still decent, right? We're still above the 50-day SMA. We look at our moving averages, our RSIs, everything's kind of in decent shape here. Okay, now it's not phenomenal, but for the most part, we're starting to bottom out. It's very early to tell, but hitting that 50 level on RSI, starting to see stochastic swing back up. There's a lot of reasons why continuation higher makes sense if we break our descending trend. Now, it's easier to identify the descending trend on the daily time frame. I'll go ahead and remove these shorter term trend lines just so we can kind of see a little easier. But if you look, you can recognize that we've hit a lot of points here. In other words, we hit our 106, we hit 99, basically 100,000. We tested 95, 93, and once more 87. So we've retested 1, 2, 3, about 5 times this descending trend. Today is the first day we've officially been able to break above it. Now, I want to say we've been able to break above it. I don't want to say we've closed above it because it's still too early. But this is generally a favorable sign to see this happen. We're also maintaining above the 20 and the 50-day SMA. Sorry, that's the 200 and the 20-day SMA with the 50 left above us. So generally speaking, when you see stuff like this, if the price were to kind of respond to these moving averages, you'll see it kind of do something along these lines here. Okay? So we got some good support here at the 84 to 85K range. So once more, not necessarily a good consideration for a short at this point, considering how much volume we've seen in a short amount of time. And increased volume over the weekend, while it's not super substantial, the money flow index is telling us that we have more money flowing in over the last 14 days than the previous. That's extremely beneficial. We're over 50 on the RSI. These are all positive signs we want to look for with continuations higher. So the daily actually looks pretty solid. There's not a lot kind of letting us know that we're going to just dump here. And with all this volume too, folks, you don't want to short into this kind of volume. Okay? Now, when we looked at this last, and I was saying 85, 86K seemed like a juicy target, we had tremendously low volume. It was a weekend. There's a lot of scenarios there that didn't come to pass. And now that we're here, it's important to recognize that you could find some benefit in shorting 88,000. I'm sure we're going to see some kind of pullback, but It also makes a lot more sense here from a momentum standpoint that we go higher based on the simple fact that money flow index is above the RSI. We've broken over 70 in the RSI. That's usually a breakout sign. And there's a lot of confirming factors here just kind of letting us know we're mostly back on track. Hourly is going to confirm that as well, so there's no real reason to kind of look at that. So what I'll do is I'll post a playout chart in our Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. Be sure to check that out. Deeply appreciate you watching. I hope you learned something today. Be sure to check out Bitunix too. We got a nice $8,000 bonus here for our newbie rewards, and every month there's always consistent rewards for our members. We are also available over on Twitter, Telegram, and Discord with some important information there with our, well, mainly my playout charts and essentially just other resources too. I look forward to working with you either way. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks again so much for your time. See you soon.